How's it going, folks? Robbie, welcome back to the channel, back on Forza Horizon 6. Today we're going to do a car build today. We're at one of the little time attack tracks in Japan. We've got the HSV GTS. The plan today is to turn this road-going sedan into a V8 Supercar. Just gone over all the specs we need to roughly try and hit. In-game it's going to be a little bit more challenging, but 650 horsepower. We've got to get the weight down to around 1,400 kilos because that was roughly what this era of V8 Supercar was. Keep the standard engine. Obviously this is a 6-litre supercharged engine out of a Corvette. The supercars usually use a 5-litre. We can't downgrade. There's a bunch of engine swaps, but nothing that small. You're meant to go a 6-speed gearbox, but I'm probably going to go an 8-speed because in game it's a bit more useful. I find it keeps you in the higher rev band as someone goes off in the background. Rear-wheel drive, yeah, there's certain things we can do to keep it as close as possible. We'll find a really cool livery, slap it on. But first, as everyone flies past in the really fast cars, we're going to take an everyday car around here. We are at this, I think it's called Little Sony Circuit, one of the time attack tracks, a really cool little track. So we're going to do a lap or two just to see what it's like. I just drove here casually from the festival site. It's good to see as an Australian. It's good to be as we get overtaken by cars we could never keep up with, especially the ones that just go straight off. Someone forgot there was a corner. Welcome to online. Yeah, it's good to see some Aussie cars sticking around from Forza Horizon 3 days, but yeah, we have missed a few since those days. We've lost a couple, but it's good to see we get at least a few hanging around. As you'd expect, it's, what's the exact power rating? Is it 577, sorry. Yeah, 577 horsepower, which is pretty good power for a rear-wheel drive car, but it is a well-equipped family 4-door sedan, saloon, whatever you want to call it. It is quite heavy, 1,800 plus kilos, so we're going to have to get the weight down. V8 Supercar is roughly around the 1,400 kilo mark. I believe that's just the mark roughly with the driver in the car. I don't know in game I'm going to be able to get that down to that weight as we get overtaken by Ferrari. I don't think we're going to get it down to that weight level, but we'll do the best we can. So we're going to go basically every racing part, aero. Normally from my cars I don't put roll cages in, but because we're going to try and replicate the real thing as best we can in Forza, so we're going to put the roll bars and the roll cages in. This is a very tail happy car, so once we get some wider rear tires, some slicks, we adjust the diff ratios, hopefully get it a bit more adjusted. Gonna have to put on the yucky Forza aero just to kind of look the part, and I think we're going to need a little bit of downforce. Let's get going. Obviously this is not to set the world's greatest lap times, just to get an idea what the car can do. Run a bit wide, I want to blame the car, but that was me. That's alright, we'll work it out. We'll have it so it turns in a little bit better. Obviously we're limited to how many of these time attack tracks we do have in game, but hopefully it'll be nice if they added a few more over the course of the game's lifespan. As much as I love the few we've got, it'd be really nice if there was more scattered around. So in future updates, it'd be really cool if they add in more for us to enjoy around the map. They don't have to have the time attack with the leaderboards. Just give us random tracks scattered around the map. That'd be really cool. All right, let's get building. So like I said, engine swaps. Obviously it's going to stay rear-wheel drive. Now this is a supercharged 6.2 litre engine from a Corvette. Is not the engine they use in V8 Supercars. There is no supercharger, and I believe it's a 5-litre back in those days. There is no 5-litre option, and the torque is going to be already a lot higher than what the V8 Supercars use, but you're limited to what you do. So I'm going to get the power figures to around 650 is what they roughly have in the cars. So let's just get as good as we can get. Let's put on this amazing aero that they all hype the shit up that it's just, they're so lazy. All right, let's go. We're going to go full on racing slicks. Got to change those wheels as well. Now, previous games, I always put not almost the widest rear tires. Just depends on how much power you've got, but I'm finding so far, just tinkering with tuning and building a few cars, that I'm getting better results for grip and a bit more speed in the corners by going the widest in the rear and the widest in the front, which makes no sense because usually that's more resistance turning the car. But maybe I'll have to go back to older Forza games and put the wider ones on, because I'm finding I'm getting better lap times with slightly wider front tires. So I'm going to chuck the big ones on the front and not going to bother with the wheel size. We can't widen the track on this car for some reason. All right, so this is just going to be race everything, just again to replicate it. Now, regular race cars, V8 Supercars, have a 6-speed gearbox, but I'm finding I'm getting better results driving around tracks in this game with an 8-speed, because it keeps you in the power band a little bit better when you change gears. So we're going to break the rules a little bit and put an 8-speed in. Let's get everything else race on. How much weight are we up to? We're losing a little bit. I don't think we're going to get down to the 1400, so we'll chuck on the race everything. Again, for the roll bars, for the most part, I might put on the chassis stiffness to sports. I never put on roll bars, but because I'm trying to make it look like an actual supercar, that has got to go on. It's going to add on a bit of weight, which is going to make it a little bit harder, but let's see how much we can take off. All right. Well, in the real world, that is a lot of weight, 384 kilos, but doesn't get us down to the 1400. There's a few things on the engine we can take off that might drop a little bit out, but I don't think it's going to get down to it. So let's see. This is the big one that takes out a little bit of weight, but 1500, that's still a bit of a heavy car compared to what we're used to. Obviously, the V8 Supercars do not have a supercharger installed. I can't see a supercharger lasting a really, really long race at Bathurst. It would explode and overheat more than likely. So we need about 650 horsepower. I'm not going to bother with the cams because that's going to bump us up way too much. What are we up to? 720, yeah. The torque's a little bit high compared to a regular supercar, which is V8 Supercar is roughly, I think it's roughly 650 to 700 newton meters of torque. We're already over 800. There's nothing I can do about that. So we're just going to have to make do. 630. Can we get right on 651's good enough, I think. 1,500 kilograms. Once my fat butt gets back in there, it's going to get over 1,600 kilos again. So that is as good as it's going to get. So I'm going to go find a livery, and then we'll start tinkering with the tune, and then we'll do some laps and see if we can turn it into a fun little V8 Supercar. Let's see how we go. All right, before I show off the car completely, this is the livery I found, which is the HRT from 2009. That is the creator, just giving a little bit of props. They've done a fantastic job. IM806. Let's have a look at what I found. No, don't do that. Wrong one. There you go. Push the button when you're at menu, dumbass. All right, so this is the end result. A little bit more looking like a V8 Supercar. Obviously, it's a little bit different. The engine's not right, but it's got a little bit more torque than normal. Bit heavier than normal, but there's limitations to what we can do in the game. We can't take ballast in and out of the car and position it around like you can in Gran Turismo 7. So, yeah, very limited. We can't pull back the power like it'd be nice if we had the features like in Gran Turismo 7 when you can adjust sliders to get the power exactly how you want into a certain class. But we're up to S1755, so we're stopped smack bang in the middle. Makes no sense, but I'm not trying to make this a competitive car on the leaderboards. Again, it's just trying to recreate the car in-game as close as I can get it, and I think that's as good as it's going to get. So let's head on over to the track. I got to say, winter, while driving around the map, is very, very pretty, but it's a lot harder now to find stuff on the map because everything's just a white mess. So we're all the way up here. Let's fast travel. We'll start over here near the pit straight. Whatever that'll do. Too many icons on the map. All right, so we're here online. There's probably already a few people driving around, but that's all right. Not like they're going to crash into us like the old days of playing online. Let's just go for it. All right, let's see what we can do. Obviously, already she's a lot faster, makes a pretty good noise. Just going to have a little warm-up lap to see what it's like. I've adjusted the tune a little bit to what I would roughly put on my rear-wheel drive cars. Again, I am no expert tuner, but I do tinker and eventually I get what I like. I just did a little bit of driving around the festival site just to see how it handles, and I'm quite happy with it. Obviously, V8 Supercars are pretty unique in the way they handle it. No, obviously, I've never driven one, so I don't really know, but they appear to have somewhat stiff suspension when they very aggressively take curbs. So I try to do that, but at the same time I want it to be fairly drivable in game, which is why I have my 8-speed gearbox on, because obviously the real cars do not have that. It's a 6-speed, like I said before. But in game, I'm finding, especially in Horizon 6, 8-speed gearboxes are pretty handy because, as you can see, we barely drop below 6,000 RPM, and that just keeps you in the power band a lot better than a 6-speed would. I always wondered why people put these sort of gearboxes on tunes you download, and I finally get it now. There's a slight difference going around certain tracks as we run very wide. All right, let's try and focus, try and get some good laps in here. All right, let's line up the hill. I've got the gearbox short cut down to pretty short gear ratio so we can just get as much acceleration as possible. Obviously, in the real world, these cars hit around 300 k's an hour in a long enough straight. We don't have to worry about that in game, but when I finish the tune, I'm happy with it. I'll adjust the gearbox, but for certain tracks like this, there's no point having a really long gear ratioed gearbox because you're never going to need it. This is all about acceleration and punch out of the corners. Quite happy with the braking. Might be a little bit stiff. I think that's, where is it? I think I've got up to around 110. I'll show you the tune properly. 115, so I could probably drop that a little bit. All right, let's get going. This is one thing I don't like about Horizon 6. When you make an adjustment to the tune, it just pauses the damn car, which is frustrating. You know, first world problems, eh? All right, let's go. Try and get some nice clean laps. Obviously, we're not at the top of S1 class, so it's never going to be effective. This car's too heavy and bulky to be a lap world rivals competitor. But we've got a bunch of other cars. I was thinking the other day when I had the idea to make this in game. We got a Ford as well, Ford Falcon. I was just thinking of certain other cars. Obviously, V8 Supercars now is a little bit different to what it used to be for us Australians. No more Australian cars, no Falcons and Commodores. It's all Mustangs and Camaros, which I gotta say they look pretty good. I won't lie, they look good on the track, but they're not our cars, and it's kind of hard to be passionate about the sport and the series anymore. But so the idea, obviously, we've got some of the Camaros and Mustangs in the game, so I might take one of the base ones and see if I can build them up into a V8 Supercar as well. And then hopefully the idea is to build up a bunch for a V8 Supercar series and have them all do roughly the same lap, try and get them all same power, same speed, so it might be a fun little competitive series to make. Obviously, we're limited to certain builds in game, but so far I'm quite happy with the way it drives. Let's get in the cabin. I love the fact that we can now paint on the windows. Now, obviously, I didn't paint this car. I'm not skilled enough or patient enough, or just skilled in general. I think I just cut that corner. But it does give it a more of a realistic feel having the livery there on the window. I love that we've finally gotten that. This car does accelerate quite nice. The V8 does sound pretty good. The whine there of the supercharger, which is not something you'd hear in a V8 Supercar, but yeah, there's no 5-litre racing engine swap that we can do in this car, which kind of sucks, but it's just the way it is. I've been to this track quite a few times since this game came out, and this is probably the quietest I've ever seen it. So it's around midday here in Australia on a Monday, public holiday, which is for us because it's the King's birthday weekend in the UK. Not many people online today, and obviously in America and Europe and all that, it's very late at night for you guys, so you're probably all asleep. And the Australians are probably all drunk at the pub or watching the football. So I think we're just overall, I got to say, I'm pretty happy with the tune. Let me just show you what I've done. Obviously, this is going to work for my driving style, and the measurements and bar and all that's in Australian, so it probably won't make sense to your guys, but you can convert in the game and change the spec. So not going to go through too much. I'll just quickly show it. The individual gears I didn't change. I just adjusted the final drive at the end because I'm pretty happy with it. It's all pretty close. And for tracks where I want to go faster, I'll just spread it back out to where it was. So alignment, that's where I ended up going. The cast is a bit high. I'll probably drop that back down to about 6, but I was just experimenting. But overall, the car turns in really well. puts the power down to the corner. Stiffer in the rear, I find a little bit for my driving style. Keeps a bit more planted through the corners. It's not a bumpy track, so I've got it dumped all the way down. Not really noticing it bottoming out at all. Most of the tracks in this game are pretty smooth. There's your stiffness. You could go stiffer if you want, but just for me personally, the way I drive, I'm happy with it. I didn't want to go full aero. Sometimes it can slow you. It's good through the corners, but it can penalize you a little bit in the straight. So I usually go around the 70% odd. Brakes, again, like I showed you before, that is my preference. You can do what you want with that. And the diff, I've got it set at that. She kind of handled it. I don't change anything because I was fiddling around one of the sliders. Again, we just come to a complete bloody stop. All right, so best I've done is a 48.5. Out of curiosity, where does that put me compared to what I've done before? Where's the leaderboard? I don't know, be well into the 45 was news. So I did a 45.9 in my Ferrari. So we're a few seconds off that. But that one's got like 800 horsepower, and that is built up to the top. So we're a few seconds off my fastest car, which a Ferrari, yeah, it's a lot wider, it's more agile, it's got a shitload more horsepower, and yeah, this is never going to compete with it. Even if I put more horsepower on, this is not going to compete. But I'm not trying to compete against the leaderboards. I'm just trying to make what I feel could be like a in-game V8 Supercar. Obviously, we don't have the real thing, so we've got to try and imitate as best we can. And it looks the part, it kind of sounds the part, except just ignore the supercharger whine. When it handles pretty good, she turns in quite nicely. We don't have the really stiff curb, so it's not like we're watching videos from the Gold Coast races where this thing is up on two wheels through the chicanes and the S-bends, but it feels, pretty good. I'm going for that power's getting put down the road pretty good. The changes I made to the diff, the aero, I think with the aero taken off, it'd make the car a lot more unsettled, so it kind of needs to be on. And when you chuck on the livery, the wing and that starts to look pretty good. He's on the power a little bit too fast on the exit there, and we ran a little bit wide into the snow. It's not something we'd say on the racetrack here in Australia. We get snow here, but not around racetracks that I'm aware of. They're actually a little bit faster. I think we should be able to beat that little Austin Healey around here. If we get beaten by them, then we got some problems. It is good to see every now and then someone just brings some random car to these little tracks. Normally everyone just brings those ridiculously fast X-Class time attack machines that just go way too quick. It's nice when people just bring a random car here and just go for a drive. Makes you feel like you're at more of a track day on the weekend. A little bit exit, lost a little bit of grip there, just a bit too keen to get on the power. That was all. Comes down to me not paying attention. And we've lost half a second. That's a lot better than the last lap. So we'll do one more. Hopefully we can do one more clean lap. If I can get into the 47s, I'd be happy. Down to fourth. Ease it around. Gentle on the throttle. Now we can punch it down the hill. Obviously 650 horsepower is not the most amount of power you'd expect in a race car, but as long as you're gentle with it, you can manage it pretty easily. Powering up the hill to the next sector. I'm really happy with the brakes on this thing. Still a big bulky car, 1,500 kilos. But it does put its power down quite well. The standard cars have a lot of power, but they do kind of feel kind of slow, especially with the gearboxes in the standard GTS. This one is so much better. I think that's I might be able to shave a bit more time at 48 flat. I really want to get that into the 47s. A better driver could. I kind of let off the power going over the line, so we've lost a bit of time. Yep. I think that's as good as we're going to get. There's not a lot of time you can make up around here when you've done a half decent lap. A good driver sure can do over a second quicker than me easily, probably even more, but I'm just trying to think where I could shrink off some time. Maybe on this corner up here. If I get the line right, I can be a little bit smoother through here and keep my momentum up a bit more. It's definitely one of those tracks where you need to keep your momentum up as much as possible. But this is like the rival. How the hell after all that was like, okay, there's a lot of time to be made up. I was down quite a bit through here. And I was the fastest lap. Okay, there's some time to be made up. We're going to keep going. Oh, there we go. We've made up 3 tenths. Can we keep that up? This is the problem when you do like a rivals kind of event where you're trying to get faster and faster. It can be very addictive. Trying to get the braking line exactly right. I keep my braking line on because I'm not going to remember every single, oh my God. I'm not going to remember every single corner in this game and every road. It's just, yeah, I'll just use that instead. 7:10, so there's a lot of time. I was talking shit last lap. Can we get this up? This is going to be, can you get into the 46s? 47.5, so there's 2 tenths we can make up somewhere there. I ran a bit wide there. All right, so there's a little bit of, well, that doesn't help. That's just a good way to end it there. Well, that's pretty cool. I'm overall, I've got to say, I'm really happy with the results of that. I mean, there's some changes you could probably make. A better tuner could make to the tune I've done, make it a little bit better, but overall, I love the way that drives. Again, it's not built up to the top of S1 class. Many people can make something faster, but having watched V8 Supercars all these years, it kind of handles the way you'd expect compared to what we've seen. I've never driven one in real life. I'm not skilled enough for that. I'd love to though. Even just go for a ride in one in the real world would be fantastic. But this is the best we can get. I'm quite happy with the way that is. So that you saw the tune before, you're more than welcome to replicate it and let me know how I can improve on it. But overall, I think it's pretty good. And with the tune on it, it looks pretty sweet as well. So until the next one, see you later.